when we hear God speaking into a particular situation in the scriptures, usually that message has a universal application, right? God is speaking to a particular people at a particular time, in a particular situation, but usually God's also speaking universally. We can apply that message generally, and that includes to us, right? And that's true again in our first reading today from the prophet Isaiah. Let's just start by examining the particular situation for a moment. God's people were once again being threatened by a foreign army, right? And they were understandably concerned about it. So God sent Isaiah to the king, and he said, yes, you are under attack, right? But they will not overcome you if you stand by me. He says, but if you do not stand by me, you will not stand at all. But if you stand by me, you will not be overcome. So yes, God says, yes, you are under attack. Yes, you are facing this challenge. But you will not be overcome if you stand by me. Now, what I want to suggest to us is that God is still speaking those same words to us today, thousands of years later. So when we come up against challenges like the people of Israel, maybe it's some kind of challenges with work or finding work, challenges with our finances, with our mental health, challenges in relationships, in our families, and challenges with sickness or with death, the grief that we experience in various areas of our life. When we face those challenges, the invitation for us is the same as the invitation that God gave his people here in the first reading. Yes, you are facing these challenges. Yes, they're real and sometimes they're quite painful, but they will not overcome you if you stand by me. Yes, but if. What we believe as Christians is that through the death and resurrection of Christ, all of our challenges and ultimately all of the deaths that we experience have already been overcome. That's what we believe. That's sort of core to our faith. They've already been overcome. And so to have faith means to allow this truth to colour the way that we interpret all the challenges that we face. To operate out of a place of faith is to be constantly coming up against those words. Yes, challenging, but they won't overcome me if I stand by Christ, stand by his promise, stand under his victory. I think the key challenge for us is actually hearing these words from God. What tends to happen, at least in my experience, is that we get lost in the mind. We get lost in the world of thought. And so what happens is that when we face a challenge, we tend to think a lot about it. Anyone think a lot about their problems? Focus on your problems? And we start anticipating, don't we, what's going to happen? Oh, okay, this is going to happen, and then that'll happen, and then that'll happen. And then we get upset, and we get critical, or we get angry, or we start blaming someone, ourselves, that person, God. And then we start realizing that we're anxious, and we focus on the fact that we're anxious, and we just get lost. We get caught up in the mind. And all along, when we're here, lost in the mind, God is deep within us, saying, yes, but if, but we're not hearing because we're here, we're lost up here. So I think a very practical, everyday challenge for us is to get underneath our thoughts. That's actually possible, because you are not your thoughts. You are not your mind. That's sort of a part of you, but that's not all of you. In fact, that's not even close to who you are. That's just a faculty, right? So we can get underneath our thoughts. I think of it as moving from the head to the heart. And this is where prayer is so important. I want to suggest there is a certain type of prayer, there's a certain way of praying that helps us to access the heart, to move from this space to the deeper place in us. And the first step of that prayer really is rather than fighting what we're up against, that's what's happening when we're in our minds. We're often fighting things. We're trying to work things out. We're trying to, make sense of things. Rather than doing that, the first step to this way of prayer is just accepting what is. Yes, this is a challenge. This is a pain. This is a grief. Just accepting it rather than fighting it. Only when we accept something can we move beyond it. Right? It doesn't mean, when we accept it, doesn't mean we agree with it. Right? It doesn't mean, okay, I like that or that's good. But it's just to say, okay, that's there. Right? That's the first step of this kind of approach to prayer. And then from there, what we need to try and do is to move our attention from our thoughts, from the world of the mind, into the world of the heart. Into that still, quiet space, which is, at the depth of our being, that place that we call the heart. And I think it's good when just to imagine it. Imagine yourself moving from the head, from the thoughts, into that deep place within yourself, the place where God dwells, We might say our true self, our deepest essence, Imagine yourself moving there, underneath your thoughts. The thoughts are going on up there, right? And you're here in the still. Learning to access that deeper place within us, I personally feel is the secret to the spiritual life. Because that's where we find the truth of who we are. That's where we discover God in us. That's where we can open up to a wisdom that's much more profound than what we can kind of, come up with up here, right? That's where God's speaking to us. That's where we find the answers that we need to navigate the situations that we're facing, not by working them out, but through revelation, right? Deep down in the heart is where we hear God gently assuring us, yes, this is a challenging situation. This is a grief. This is a pain, and I'm with it. I feel it with you. But it will not overcome you if you stand by me.